Hey everyone, Phil and Jack from Wargamer Online, and today we are looking at dinosaurs on dinosaurs.
Lots of big scary dinos.
Dinosaurs!
Just Jurassic Park.
Wargamer Online, the home of wargaming.
Right, Jack, where do we start with this?
Well,
It's a hell of a book.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with a big old thank you to Games Workshop because, you know, this has been... A lot of people have been expecting this for a while, and I think they have delivered. They have delivered massively on this book. You know, there's so many ways to play, so much has been reimagined. It's now, you know, it feels like an army that belongs in Age of Sigmar 2.0, rather than an army that was lagging in Age of Sigmar 1, you know, when we had that beginning, and they kind of threw a couple more rules in there to make them all right, but, you know, it was a very monotone army. I mean, a lot of Seraphon players would agree. It was skinks and skinks and skinks, but now I feel like, you know, there's just so much more you can do with this book now. So I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with this.
I think you're absolutely spot on because, you know, we receive these books on a regular basis, and I'm just going to back up with that. Yes, thank you, Games Workshop, for sending them through because it's most generous of you. And, you know, and some of the books come through and sometimes we engage with them and you're like, yeah, it's a good book, or it does this, it does that. This one, because we have like a little WhatsApp group. Yeah, well, we have a WhatsApp group, don't we, where we kind of discuss the books and what we've seen in them in preparation for the show. I've never seen the WhatsApp group so active. You know, it's all WGO people, so it's all people who are allowed to see the books who feed into this. So, you know, Liam and Luke, etc. So these are the ones that are, you know, we kind of look through the book and we discuss it, and it's been on fire the last couple of days.
we keep kind of stumbling onto things. You're like, ooh, that's interesting.
There was definitely a point during the preliminary preparation for the show where I think we just shouted stegodons at each other.
Stegodons!
For
Big scary dinos!
For about 25 minutes, just shouting stegodons.
Yeah.
It was we're pretty excited about it. As you know, Rachel has Seraphon Army. And that's in the studio. It needs rebasing because it dates right back to issue 1 of the release.
Where there was no basing chart.
There was no basing chart. You just put them on round bases. So we're gonna have to rebase some of them anyway, and we've decided just to rebase everything and combine them with Liam's army. But tomorrow we are filming a battle report.
Yes,
because we can put 2,000 points together of Seraphon.
Yep, and there will be a special surprise in that battle report as well. I think a lot of people will be happy to see something there. But
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
I'll leave that as a mystery, so you check it out.
But without further ado, what we want to do is get into this book, because I'm sure that's what you want to do as well. Games Workshop has ever been fantastic with some of the community feed as well. So you've already got a sense of the change in the lore. But all I want to cover in the lore today, I think, really, is the shift that's taken place in terms of the background. So they explain it away by essentially saying, you know, how the Seraphon appeared to people isn't necessarily what they are. They appeared to be just appearing out of everywhere, but actually they were teleporting down from these giant ziggurat ships in space.
They're temple ships.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was the thing, you know, at the end times when everything blew up, the lizard men along with the slant all kind of did a backwards shuffle onto their ships, and they went off into the void. You know, it's very interesting because they're the only really spacefaring species in all of kind of fantasy and Age of Sigmar.
Not only spacefaring, but scientific. Yes, you know, the word science is used in description of this technology.
Although you could argue Skaven's got a bit of tech, but I wouldn't really call it science.
It's low-grade tech at best, but I mean, no offense to any Skaven player, you know. But you've seen how you rope stuff together, okay? This is real.
This is space tech, real basically. Void ships. So they all went on their void ships. They left the world that was, and they come back because their ships start to fail. They start running out of fuel. Dracothian, you know, the god beast Dracothian, along with Sigmar,
who rescued Sigmar.
Who rescued Sigmar, and they actually rescues this. This is why they are the children of Dracothian now. So you know, he uses his breath to refuel their temple ships, and now the temple ships are starting to land in the mortal realms.
And that's the big shift, really, because what you've got is the temple ships are landing in the mortal realms. They are, for want of a better word, terraforming.
Yes, yeah.
or pterodactyl forming.
The Realmscaper engines. Oh.
Sorry about that. We've just had someone to subscribe. Thank you very much for that. Carry on.
So yeah, the Realmscaper engines are kind of turning where the temple ships are landing back to their natural habitat. So, you know, if any of you are old fantasy players, you'll know the Lizardmen came from Lustria, which was this lush jungle, think Amazon tropical rainforest. It's hot, it's wet, it's humid, but the lizards love it because they're these cold-blooded creatures. So these Realmscaper engines are turning the realms around them into this jungle habitats.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, I love it.
But landing in these habitats and terraforming is having effect on the Seraphon themselves.
Yes, yeah. So, as many people will probably know, you have two forms of Seraphon. You have the Starborn, which are kind of what the Seraphon were before. They are these creatures of Azir, yeah? They have starlight running through their veins. They're not completely physical. They're not a physical presence, but they can interact physically with the world.
But the lore shifted a little bit here because we talked about them being like conjured from the memory of the Slan, whereas now what we have is these spawning pools on the ships, which are powered by starlight, and these spawning pools create these creatures.
So the Starborn come out, and that was what you expected Seraphon to be in the old rules. Yeah, the teleporting, the summoning, the Slan being able to deploy whole legions with the click of his fingers, because that's what Slans do. They like that stuff. But what you find is these Seraphon that survive the battles and actually live past this become what's known as the Coalesced, and this is the kind of the new way to play Seraphon, and personally it's very exciting for me. This is when they've been living in the realm, and the realm's magic is kind of merging with their Azerite magic, and they're becoming these physical presences, you know. Their scales are hardening, their blood,
they are creatures of flesh and blood now as well. So this is, and what's nice is not only are the ships landing in terraform, but they're essentially building their own society. Now they're an order faction.
Arguably, yes, they are an order faction because they believe in order and civilization, but they were never a pantheon of order. They never joined Sigmar or Teclis or Tyrion or Malarian or Marathi.
And they've got their own agenda, haven't they? Basically, that's what it kind of says.
Yeah, so
it's a bit like 40k Eldar. You know, their intentions are almost unfathomable to a lot of the other
they have
races.
The great plan of the old ones. So, you know, if you don't know, the old ones is something that's mentioned in both 40k and fantasy, and the Slan were meant to be almost the children of the old ones, where they're the emissaries. And not much is known on the old ones. Of course, Games Workshop like to keep their secrets, but the Slan have this big old plan, and they know what they're doing.
It's probably not unlike you know, an AA or, you know, book or something like that, or you know, the ones that tell you how to build Lego.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
It's not unlike the instructions to, say, a Lord of Change.
Yeah. Yes, but as far as anybody can tell, their intention and their plan is the utter destruction of chaos in all its forms. That is just what they do.
So
they hate chaos.
It's nothing like an instruction manual for a Lord of Change.
Well,
in reverse order.
In reverse order, that's it. Instead of creating chaos, we're going to try and destroy it.
Yeah. And good on them. Unless, of course, you're a Chaos player, in which case, because these guys are going to be fun. I think that's probably enough of us ranting and raving about how much we love the new background.
Angry dinos killing chaos. What more do you want?
We've all really engaged with this, and you know, I know that, you know, some of the models, they're old models. Some of the models are old models, but come on. Dinosaur on dinosaur. What are you waiting for?
They're arguably, even though they're old models, they're one of the most free army to do out there, because there's so much you can do with them. Hey, do you want bright pink lizards riding bright red lizards? Why not? They're lizards. Go for it.
It looks fine. It looks fine. You
want to make them proper dinosaurs? Then go for it. You're all good.
Right. I am going to jump forward to page 59. You know what? Let's not just jump forward without the camera. Let's let everybody have a look at some of the incredible artwork that's in this book. This terrain, which has taken, you know, the Sigmarite terrain, and they've converted it, and they've created these wonderful sorts of temples with the floating pyramids on top, which is just absolutely cool. And we've spent a few hours picking over this, working out what they've made. We think this is actually the Eldar terrain upside down, creating the sparks.
That weird Eldar foliage.
Yeah, with a few other bits added to it, but that's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
But and hopefully you guys can kind of see that in the top corner there. I appreciate the pages are shiny. I've asked Games Workshop to produce a matte version for filming, but understandably they're busy enough as it is. I love this kind of like portal gateway where they're all storming out. Absolutely fantastic. There's so much wonderful artwork in the start of this book. Some of it old,
big old
some of it
solar
Battalions are nailing through, and you get to see these kind of things. And this is the thing is actually they're quite terrifying.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that you also see Seraphon done almost like quite comical bright colours, but be interesting to see them done in very
dark,
realistic, visceral colours,
browns and reds.
and I think this is a good example. You don't have to go crazy with this, and I think when we did ours, we kind of kept it fairly muted.
Yeah.
Look at that. Brilliant.
You can always play with the models as well.
Yeah, I know.
Making rah noises as you're painting.
Rah. Again, more shots of this wonderful terrain that they've built, and it looks fairly easy for you to have a go at this yourself. This could be cut out of scratch card.
Yeah.
Stuck on the sides and those kind of things. So if you wanted to build one of these, the base is available, within the core terrain pieces. But oh my, what a fantastic looking table if you take that route. Of course, the painting guides.
Yeah.
And you'll see now that obviously there are things like the under Kellyan green over an undercoat of Corax white. So it's. You're seeing kind of a mixture of contrast and the standard stuff, but this is an army that super lends itself to contrast.
Oh yeah.
Let's face it. So if you're kind of terrified about getting a large army painted, and this is your first venture into Age of Sigmar,
contrast is
it's a great army to paint. I think there are certain things like the Marines within 40k were designed to be able to paint relatively quickly. There's a lot of detail on them, but you paint as much detail as you want.
Yeah,
it's a bit like this with the Seraphon army. I think you could kind of hit them with the base colors, put some contrast over the top, pick out the golds, and you're playing a beautiful looking army. Especially if you've hit some bright colors and stuff. And it's really punching out with a bit of contrast. If you want to go much further and do the liver spots and things like that. On the skin texture,
let's just hope you don't have too many skinks to do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've got 100 skinks, go for it. I'm tackling 80 Ungors, so I've got no sympathy for anybody right now. Really nice into this, but here we are, folks. If you're looking for us to get on with talking about the rules, here we are into the allegiance abilities and battle traits on page 55.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand this over to you. What do you pick out of this? We've talked. There's the coalesce. So, if I remember rightly, these are called. It's the battle traits, isn't it? But these are. What do they call them now? Constellations, isn't it? So the ways of each constellation.
Yeah, you've kind of. So most people will know. Seraphon are all about their stars and their constellations and the alignments and drawing on the power of the stars to do things. So you kind of got your generic Seraphon traits, which all Seraphon armies gets. And within that, you basically have to choose to play your army as a coalesced army, which we've talked about before, or a starborn army.
Okay, so let's go down the ways of the Seraphon then. What are the core rules we've got with this?
So you've got the contemplations of the Ancient Ones, which is something they added in General's Handbook 2019. Okay. So it's a familiar rule, and what this is meant to show, the Slans are beings who have lived for millennia. They follow different paths of magic, and they can call upon memories of old magics that they knew. So what it means is that at the end of each of your hero phase, you can actually replace the spell the Slan knows from his lore with a different spell. So it's one of those, you're charging a big lizard into combat. Oh, I'm going to need to heal that next turn. Let's change that to Celestial Apotheosis, so I know I'm going to be able to heal that. So
essentially, just pick a spell every turn.
Yeah, you get to pick a spell. Of course, something to mention is it's only in effect for the next turn, because it's the end of your hero phase.
And, they leave it open. You can choose or roll. So it depends on if you're playing a narrative and you want a random effect to it. But the reality is everybody's going to pick that.
Yeah.
We have got Sacred Asteroid characterisms.
Yeah, so this was something that the Slan had on its war scroll, you know. It was something only the Slan had, and that's where they could read the constellations, and if the stars aligned right, then they could do something. So you had the Great Drake, the Hunter Steed, and the Sage's Staff.
Yeah,
Now, originally, you had to roll a d3 at the start of the turn if you had a Slan, and you could then try and change it every turn with the Slan, but there was a chance it could go wrong.
Yeah.
But now you just choose it at the start of your hero phase, so it's a lot more flexible.
And the free effects are, you know, the Great Drake then. So until the end of phase, you can add 1 to attack characteristics of melee weapons.
For a Seraphim hero, so
Fantastic.
that's really, you know, you got a big old Carnosaur.
Add 1 to run rolls and charge rolls for friendly Seraphon across the entire army. Beautiful. And the Sage Staff, which is add 1 to your castings and dispellings rolls for wizards if it is your hero phase.
You have to pick one wizard.
And you can add 1 to unbinding rolls as well, which is pretty tidy.
Which is interesting, because when we start to look at the other rules that the Slan have, that you really start to appreciate how magical these creatures can be. Yeah. So that's the ways of the Seraphim. So that's, you know, that's what all armies get. And then you move into Coalesce. Now, to me, Coalesced are your Saurus. They're obviously aimed at being your Saurus blocks, you know, big stoic walls of angry lizards with shields, predatory fighting. That's what they're meant to be. So you can either make them Kotal's Claw or Thunder Lizards, which are your constellations. So they're kind of like your temples for Daughters of Cain, or your war groves for Sylvaneth. So they get you extra abilities and some command traits. But so some of the things they get cold-blooded. Again, this is something that harkens back to fantasy, but you ignore modifiers positive or negative to the bravery. So yeah, that's pretty good, you know.
Maybe it's a good point to mention here at this stage as well is, you know, in reflection of the lore, they've lost the demon keyword.
Yes, they're no longer
and
demons.
In losing the demon keyword, they've also now got a range of braveries.
Yeah, so, you know, Slan range from Bravery 9
know.
to the monsters being like Bravery 5 or something.
Okay.
So yeah, they ignore modifiers. Predatory Fighters, which is one of the best rules they have, which is add 1 to attack characteristics of Jaws weapons used by coalesced units.
And you immediately think about Saurus and Saurus God.
But can I just stress how many Jaws weapons are in this Battletome? The Stegodon now has grinding jaws. The Troglodon has acidic jaws. The Carnosaurs have jaws. The Knights on their cold ones have jaws. So every single jaw attack, it's not just the
it's more or less add 1 attack across the entire army.
Yeah, if they're not hitting you with a mace, you're adding 1 to attack.
Skinks don't have jaws, do they?
No, they're too cowardly for that.
Yeah, well, they keep well away from that. What else have we got in here then? We've got Primeval Domain.
So this is to do with
struggling
their
with that one.
terraforming.
So this is if a terrain feature is partially or wholly within the territory of a coalesced army, then any damned, arcane, inspiring, and mystical scenery rules for that feature only apply to coalesced units, while any deadly and sinister scenery rules for that terrain feature do not apply. So essentially, you only get the positive bonuses out of the terrain within your territory.
Yeah,
that covers that whole lore of terraforming.
They're
making the terrain friendly to themselves and bad for everybody else. And then finally, inside the coalesce,
Scaly Skin, subtract 1 to damage inflicted by successful attacks that target coalesced units to a minimum.
Seriously, you look at armies that are almost dependent on that double damage, and it's like
Hearthguard Berserkers, monsters. It's just like
anything
what?
on 2 damage.
Yeah, anything on 2 damage.
It's a real kick in the teeth, isn't it? But should be fun.
Yeah.
And then we're into
Starborn.
The Starborn. So
this is where you start to get back to the kind of original way of playing Seraphim. So one thing to note is that Starborn are all Bravery 10. So, you're back to being demons now. You don't have the demon keyword, but you are back to be Bravery 10 across your entire army.
Yeah.
Because this is to show they're not really living creatures at this point. They're still kind of conjurations of magic.
So these are, for all intents and purposes, the demon versions that we saw in the previous.
Yeah.
Because when you're saying like they played previously, you're talking Age of Sigmar 1. You're not talking 8th edition, are you?
Yeah,
so
just
to be clear, you're not talking
the start of Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
So you have Celestial Conjuration. Now, if you played before, you knew Celestial Conjuration was kind of a bit broken. You know, Slans making 9 points a turn was kind of quite powerful. So they've changed it up a bit now. So you start off with getting D3 for your Slan, just for being on the table. Like you used to get the 1 last game, so you now get D3. You get D3 for an Astroloth Bearer, which you used to get before. So yeah, cool, good. Now Slans can forego 1 of their spells to generate D3 Celestial Conjuration.
Oh, so not all of them.
So not all of them, and it's
which
only
is
D3
cool
now.
because sometimes you had these massive casters and they just sat around doing nothing.
Yeah, so
you know, that's what it felt like. Because they were kind of like it was too tempting to save those points and go for the big summon. You know.
So yeah, so now you're getting 3D3. Then for every Skink Oracle you have, they can forego their casting attempt. And a Skink Oracle, for anybody who doesn't know, is the Skinks on Troglodyons.
Right.
So they can forego their casting attempt to get D3. So, you know, you could, if you wanted to go all in on this,
punch up
get
some numbers,
4 or 5 D3 Celestial Conjuration points a turn, which, you know, is still quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, let's just look down the numbers then. Your minimum is 6 for 10 Skinks. There's a range, everything from Pterodon Riders through to, let's see what we go, Chameleon Skinks. That covers Ripidactyls, Salamanders, Saurus Guard, Saurus Knights, 5 Guard, by the way.
Yeah.
All sitting at 10-point mark. And then at the 15-point mark, you're pushing into Saurus Sunbloods, a Star Priest, an Astrolith Bearer, the Croxigors. Entering into 20, you've got the Bastillodons, Saurus Scarvet on Carnosaur. Yes. 25, we're looking at Oracles on Troglodon.
Yeah.
Makes sense because that's punching up a lot of
quite
things.
Good now.
Stegodon's in there. Stegodon.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we get finally into Engine of the Gods and
kind
Stegodon
of
with
right
a Skink
at the
Chief
last
around
bracket,
like 30. And by the time you've hit 30, really, as we, you know, as you said, it's a chore to get there, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. If you've got a massive army, then you're probably going to be getting up there. But
yeah, I think it's important to say though, and just as a reminder here, you have to pick one or the other. You either play Seraphon super combat-y with all of those buffs. They're super tough, loads of attacks, etc., etc. Or you play the teleporty summoning game, don't you?
Yes.
But you can't do both now. You know, you can't do both. You do one or the other. So if you liked the play style you had, then arguably you can continue with that play style.
You want MSU Skinks everywhere shooting blowpipes, because, you know, we should mention they do still have Lords of Space and Time, so they can just teleport 1 unit a turn anywhere on the battlefield 9 inches away.
Yeah,
which is cool. You know, that's Skinks running back objectives. Yeah, all this kind of like random stuff that they had before. Then you can still do that. But if you want your big bricks of Saurus with, like, you know, gnashing jaws and big monsters flying, then Coalesce is going to be for you. And I think it was one of those things that a lot of people were disappointed that Saurus, you know, I don't think Games Workshop will mind us saying this, Saurus were bad last edition. They didn't do anything but die.
Well, you only have to look at it and see what's on the table, what's not on the table, and, you know, you just didn't see them played. And this gives you this second. I mean, I was listening to Stormcast episode recently. I think it was this week's or last week's, probably last week's Stormcast episode. And Jervis Johnson was on there, and he was talking about how the rule designers are working hard to essentially make the army play like they should, and appear like they should. So the reason Caradon Overlords is so heavily biased to showing up with a whole bunch of boats is that's what exactly Caradon Overlords are meant to do. When you see a KO army enter the table, it should be a bunch of boats flying around. What's interesting about this is they've kind of given you almost 2 options, and they both fit within the law. Do you want to be this mass block of terraforming, territorial grabbing, super hard lizards that are toughened combat veterans?
Which will just bite.
You know, they've been on the planet, they've been fighting chaos. You know, they're there. Or do you want the fresh-faced guys teleporting down from the ships?
Being
space?
Cheeky, hitting you with a blowpipe.
And it gives you that option. I think it's quite nice. It's quite nice to have this kind of utterly, you know, different way of playing the army. Let's get more into the units, though. I'm keen for us to start looking at some of the units. So, well, actually, before we do that, we probably should take a look at. Let's have a look at the spells, shall we?
Oh, the spells are interesting.
So what's caught your eye in terms of the spells?
So the Slan spell lore is quite interesting. You know, Celestial Apotheosis has heals. You can give units fly. Cool, that's great. You can break artifacts from heroes. That's amazing. You've got that really annoying 3-up Frost Lords going across that cannot be rendered. Not anymore. You just break his amulet.
So this is, hold on a sec. It's a 5-up though, so it's an outside chance. But I get what you're saying. If that's really causing you problems, you can pick that spell. You haven't got to keep it for the whole game.
Yep.
Just pick it for that turn and go, you know what, I'll go for the 1 in 3 chance.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It casts on the 7. You pick a hero within 12 inch. The hero suffers D3 mortal wounds, so it's not utterly wasted. And on a 5-up, the hero no longer bears that artifact of power.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good. Celestial Equilibrium is quite interesting. If you're going with lots and lots of little skink mages everywhere, this was quite good. It gives an army-wide +1 caster spell and unbind for friendly wizards other than the caster. You're doing a doubles tournament. That can be quite interesting. If you're going along with Cities of Sigmar Hallowheart, then yeah, sure, why not go with that? It's going to help your mate out. Stellar Tempest is just crazy. 24-inch. 5-up to kill every model in the unit, or do a mortal wound. 24 inches, and you just need to tag one of those models.
So pick one enemy unit within 24 inches.
Yeah,
exactly. You just got to take. That's a lot of the table covered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Drain magic as well. I kind of like how they're going with this. You know, the Slan are these insane casters. Yeah, they're meant to have mastery of all sorts of magic. So drain magic is a 24-inch aura, and it just nullifies every endless spell that's not bound. Take them all off the table. Take them all off the table. You just got a Slan that waddles into the middle of the table and goes no, and all your spells are just gonna go.
Fantastic. What have we got over on the celestial manipulation? So these, what we've covered is Slan.
Skinks
Celestial
now have
manipulation is their Skink's own spell list. Which I like it.
Yeah,
I like the fact there's a different
skinks,
flavour.
a lot of cheeky skinks, then yeah, go for it. You kind of got ones that stand out for me is Hand of Glory, gives reroll hits of 1 for a hero, so you know, pop it on a Carnosaur, they're going to be quite good. And Bind Endless Spell, which is you choose an endless spell within 18 inches, and that now has bound for a turn. So what's that? I'm sorry.
Should we just explain what bound is?
Yeah, so
because we may, if you've not seen the kind of hoo-ha about all of this, essentially by binding an endless spell, it means only the Seraphon player can control it.
Yeah. So you know what's that? You know, you've got a Nightmare Predator from Azerite Bone Reapers harassing your back lines. Oh, not anymore. It's bound. Send it back at them.
Yeah.
Which is, it's really good. You know, it kind of protects you from that randomness of endless spells where you cast them forward and they come back again. And now you can actually bind other people's and send it at them.
Yeah. And it's I mean it's pretty huge though.
It's only for a turn.
Yeah, but even so, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's interesting, the bound mechanic, all of the endless spells from Malign Sorcery are in this book.
As Nexilis bound or something.
As essentially a bound version of it. And it's to bind them is essentially 10 points more across the whole the whole draft of them, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
So you pay 10 points more, but only you can use it as a slam player.
Yeah.
Which, considering what some of those spells do, some of them are pretty good, but the fear of them, Geminids is a classic. Geminids is amazing, but the fear of them bouncing back on you is quite. It makes you, if you're looking for the double turn, a lot of time you'll kind of try and, take that, take the second turn.
Yes.
Give your opponent the first, because you can't afford for the endless spell to be bouncing on you.
Whereas now,
because it does so much damage. Whereas now it's like,
yours.
you know what, I can bounce onto the double turn and still, deal with those endless spells and have a lot of fun with them. So
yeah.
I think it's pretty significant.
Yes, yeah.
But what else? Anything that caught your eye in terms of the list?
Other than that, no, not really. I mean, Tide of Snakes is kind of like Stellar Tempest, but it's only a 12-inch range, so it's like a baby version.
Okay.
Fiery Convocation can, do mortal wounds on 6 every time they do something, but that's a lot to ask for on a 6. But, it's all right. They've got some nice, fun stuff now, Skinks. They're more viable than Okay,
so jumping into past the spell law, I mean, of course, we get into Path to Glory and all the rest.
Yeah.
That's the standard insert section now.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, I was chatting to Luke Morton today, and he was saying we should do Path to Glory. We should all pick a new army and do Path to Glory and follow it on the channel. And I think it's a good idea. We've talked about it, we've never done it.
Yeah.
But Luke's Luke's been playing his Iden of Deepkin for a while. And we've got some armies sat on shelves. I'm sure we can work something out. And maybe we can do
definitely.
that. War Scroll Battalions. Let's jump into this.
So now
I've gone too far.
Yeah, well, something to talk about is there's basically only 5 War Scroll Battalions. You have the Eternal, the Sunclaw, the Fire Lance, the Shadow Strike, and the Thunderquake.
Right.
But then you either have them as Temple Hosts, which is a coalesced army, or a Star Host, which is a Starborn army. Now, the requirements for each one is the same.
Okay.
But their abilities is slightly different.
Okay.
So in a Sunclaw Temple Host, that's an Old Blood and 3 units of Soros Warriors. And you get +1 Rend on the Jaws, which is really good because Rend is always really interesting.
+1 attack on the Jaws, +1 Rend.
Yeah, so 2 attacks now with Rend. The Thunderquake Temple Host, something that's... the Thunderquake Battalion is something that all people used to always take. And now they can either run and charge or add 1 to attacks.
Okay.
And that's really good. Add 1 to attacks is really good.
Right. Should we jump into some of the War Scrolls? And then we can talk about some of these battalions in context.
Yeah.
Because you've done a little bit of digging into what impact that could have on it. I think we'll start with having a look at the old big boss himself, Mr. Croak. How's he looking, Jack? Why are you holding your forehead?
I don't know what they've done. They've so Croak, Croak was always a bit of a joke. Croak the joke.
He wasn't. People have done amazing stuff.
He's all right. He was just always so expensive. Now he's 320 points, which you're going to be like, ooh,
great.
Bit expensive for a little old dead toad on a stone. And it's like, hold your horses, right? So we're going to start off. 7 wounds, 4 up save. Meh.
Yeah.
Seen it all right,
Starting to worry.
Arcane Vessel, he can unbind anywhere on the table. Yeah, Slan's always had that. Come on, give me something good.
Hide him at the back.
He can cast through oracles.
So that's like new unit keyword, basically.
Yep. And then you hit the Azerite Force Barrier. And you're like, what's that? So the attack's characteristics of the Azerite Force Barrier is equal to the number of enemy models within 3 inches of the attacking model.
So if you were foolish enough to send in a big horde against Lord Croak, he's counting up those attacks. Yeah,
he's like the most powerful combatant in the game, and he's a dead wizard.
I think that's a bit of an extreme.
Oh no,
he's 3s and 3s, -1 Rend, 1 damage.
You can make him 2s and 3s with Kotal's Claw on the charge. He hits on 2s now. You can make him have exploding attacks from the Scarf. Actually, no, you can't make that because that's only Saurus. But yeah, you can increase. You can give him reroll ones to hit. You can give him reroll wounds. It's just like he's so good. He's so good.
But he still seems, from my perspective, still quite brittle around those 7 wounds with a 4-up save. Yeah?
He's 4-up ignore as well now.
Okay.
So dead for innumerable ages.
Roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to this model. On a 4-up, that wound or mortal wound is negated. So you can put 50% back onto that. So that takes him to like 10, 11.
Yeah,
10, 11 wounds,
he's pretty good. He's a command point machine. Rolling 3 dice at the start of every hero phase. For 4-up, you receive a command point because he's got the big brain and the plan.
So generating 1 or 2 additional command points.
Yep.
A turn.
Master of Order, so he adds 1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for this model. So when you're starting to add this up with, the Constellation, so that's now like +2 to cast. You could add it up with another Slan, so now he's +3 to cast. You're really starting to get these castings on top of each other.
I know that in some of the discussions we've had, we've seen what Skink's on +4, +5 to cast.
Yeah.
I think you worked out.
+4,
and these are always extremes because it's about having everything tied together. It's not that it's easy to achieve, but the point is it can be done. Yeah.
So he's still a 4-cast wizard because he is Big Papa Croak. He needs to be good at casting. So 4 cast, 4 dispels. He still has Celestial Deliverance, so that's when he kind of trundle shuffles into a unit and starts blasting power from his chair.
Yeah.
And again, he can cast this 3 times, 7, 8, and 9 on casting values. And you, pick 3 different enemy units within 10 inches, and on a 2-up, they take D3 mortal wounds. or 3 mortal wounds if they're Chaos Demons, because he really doesn't like Chaos Demons.
Okay.
So, casting that 3 times is quite interesting. That's bang, bang, bang. You can really and with the +2 or 3 to cast, you're not asking for much with a 9 cast.
It is a I mean, it is a 9 cast. It's not easy, but with +2 or 3, and then you're bringing it down to an average roll.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about the +2 or 3 is you're making it more difficult to unbind as well.
Yes.
When you say it's 9 to cast, and you go, well, actually, to me, it's like a 7 or a 6 to cast.
Yeah.
But the reality is you're rolling a 6 or a 7, you're adding your 2, 3, and then the unbind is far more challenging.
Yes, yeah.
And that's an important mechanic. It's like, okay, well, I know when I get my spells off, they're going to be hard to switch off, and unless you're gonna say hi to the Gashers.
But he also has Comet's Call. That's quite interesting. This is a spell that appears quite a lot in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's D3 units anywhere on the battlefield, and they take D3 mortal wounds, or if the casting roll is a 10 plus D6. And again, you're not asking a lot for a 10 plus when you're getting +2 or 3 to cast, because it's not on a modified casting roll of 10 plus, just a 10 plus.
Wow.
So yeah, Lord Croak, I think he's like quite... He's, a bit of a meme. He's this big old dead toad on a stone casting magic, and then he charges into like 30 witch elves, and he's like, now you're dead, 30 witch elves, because little lightning zapping
I love
about.
The Lord Croak model.
Yeah.
It's a great model.
And if you've ever seen Total War Warhammer 2, he's brilliant in that, because he's like this little dead toad until he gets into combat, and then a big old spirit croak comes out of him and then hits somebody and then goes back into his corpse. So it's
so how does Croak compare? And I'm conscious of time. We want to work through some of the other units, but just a quick comparison to the Slan Star Master.
So Croak is kind of like the daddy version of the Slan. Slans are little baby croaks, so they're the same kind of stat wise. They have less attacks now, only 6 attacks rather than everybody. They still get the +1 dispel and unbind and cast,
but they don't get the ignore.
They don't get an ignore. They can cast anywhere on the battlefield, but they only roll 2 dice for their command points now on 4 up. They're only 3 casts, and they don't have Celestial Deliverance.
But they're adding 1 to casting with the Masters of Order.
Yeah, so it's all they're still good. They're still good.
Still good for sure.
They have Comet's Call, but they're only a 3 cast now. So
okay. So where would you want to go next? Because we can't cover every unit. It's crazy of us to do so. I
mean, Soros is quite interesting now, because they've done some rework on the Soros. So if we go to kind of like, Soros Warriors here, they're still quite Bravery 8. That's still quite impressive on a battle line unit. 90 points for 10 models. 1 attack, 4s, 3s, -1, 1 damage. That becomes 2 attacks whilst they're 15 or more. So you're like, oh, that's good now. You're getting like 3 attacks now, yeah. Rather 4 attacks now, because that add 1. Oh wait, no, it's only on the Celestite clubs or spears. So they're 3 attacks now, with their jaws. Then they become 4 attacks with their jaws because of the coalesce.
So you make them coalesce and turn them into super warriors.
They're adding 1 to hit roll, so they're 3s and 4s now on the charge because of Kotal's Claw.
I mean, the powerful jaws
starting to get more.
Let's just pick the bones on that a little bit. So let's take this Celestite Club, for instance, which is a 1-inch range, 1 attack. It's forced to hits, which can become 3. Which does become 3 on the coalesce. But can become better. 3s to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. It's 1 attack though, so you don't get a bonus to that, do you?
You do if they're 15 or more models.
So 15 or more, you're pushing that up to say 2 attacks on 3s and 3s, -1 rend 1. That's not bad at all for a troop. Powerful jaws are up to 2 attacks. You're looking at 4s to hit though, so you kind of average that. That extra attack basically means you do get an attack off everybody. That's a good way of looking at it.
4s and 4s, so they're not great. The point is now that you have so many tools in the Battletome to make them amazing. So you can add 1 to rend on the jaws, so now they're -1 rend. The Old Blood can spend a command point to give them +1 to hit, so now they're like +2 to hit. That's really interesting.
3s, 4s, -1 rend.
You can give them exploding 6s from a Scarvet, so 6s are 2 hits. Now they're getting just tons of attacks.
So 6 becomes 2 hits. You still have to roll the wound,
Yeah.
Cool.
And something interesting is Kotal's Claw, which is one of the groups you can take them in.
Right.
Which gives them +1 to hit on the charge.
Battalions, yeah. Okay.
You can spend a command point to be +1 to hit when you are charged. So now you're just getting +1 to hit. And every time you spend a command point on a Soros unit, on a 4, you get that command point back.
So stacking all of those up, it's reasonable to say you can get a Soros unit to 2s or 3s to hit.
Exploding 6s.
Exploding on 6s to double attacks. I haven't seen anything that affects the wound roll, but it's 3s, 3s, and 4s on the bikes.
You can give them +1 wound with old bloods, but now you are asking.
We're stacking. We're stacking.
But this is the point. With the 4 up to regenerate the command point when you spend it,
you can spend.
And with 50%. Croak giving you lots of command points.
Yeah, you've got them to spare.
Yeah.
It's well within reason to say you could expect to see Soros Warriors back on the table.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It doesn't mean that the meta list is going to be nothing but Soros Warriors, but the point is they can have a role, and if you're not just about tournament playing, they've definitely got a role in the army again, and they can do some interesting stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, one other thing I just want to mention is, like Soros Knights are quite interesting now, but due to their lack of rend, I don't like them. Because unrending units seem to bounce for me. Which is why I like the Soros Warriors with -1 rend on the clubs. But saying that, they get the +1 attack on the powerful jaws and the snapping jaws of the mounts. So now, instead of getting +1 attack from your coalesced allegiance, you're now getting +2 attacks on each model.
And and that's the thing, is 2 sets of jaws, and exactly that. When you add 1 to the jaws, you're getting +2.
Yeah, so, each model is like 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks each.
Yeah, 7 attacks each, and again with modifiers in there as well, you can improve them. But either way, it feels like you say, it's a little bit let down. The bites are let down a little bit by the lack of rend, and I don't mean no, that's what I'm saying. I don't mean it should be there. I'm just saying be conscious of it. That you're going, you're going to bounce a little bit against armor, which is your point. When the rend isn't there, you bounce against armor. You can give the jaws -1 rend though. Is that right? So that would impact both
only
of those
Soros Warriors.
Only on Soros Warriors.
And it's in the battalion. So.
And it's in the battalion. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Okay, what else were you thinking of having a look at?
Well, okay, you got the new Troglodon, yeah?
Yeah,
so this is
that.
the Skink Oracle on Troglodon. Now, this is going to be your best friend if you're taking Starborn armies, because, again, they can increase their command point generation. They're now actually a pretty good mage with Comet's Call. That's a spell that's popping up quite a lot. So that's quite interesting now that they can regenerate. They subtract 1 to bravery.
By the way, the regen is on a 2+. Yeah, it heals D3.
So,
it's not one of those. It's a 50-50. Sometimes it comes along.
You can reroll charge rolls with if you do wounds with the Noxious Spittle in. Drawn to the Screams, which is quite a horrible title, but it is a big nasty cave-dwelling dinosaur. So
any wounds inflicted by this model's Noxious Spittle are allocated to the enemy model and not negated until the end of the turn. You can re-roll charge rolls for the model. But it's nice. And what's the range on that? The Noxious Spittle.
18.
18 inch. So we're starting at 18 inch. So it's good enough. If you want to slam this into someone, you can do it. It's 18s. It's doing D3 attacks, so it's not just a one shot, which is always comforting. I hate those things that kind of have a bonus, but it's reliant on a one shot at the start of the turn. At least with a D3, you're pretty much hopefully going to get 2. If you get the 3, it's 3s and 3s doing 2 damage. It's not shabby.
No,
not shabby at all.
As well, the Skink Star Priest. I mean, this is something that Luke's kind of pointed out to me, is their Serpent Staff, where they can give a unit mortal wounds on 6s to wound. You put that on a unit of 40 Skinks, they're getting like 80 shots with blowpipes doing mortal wounds. Then they can charge in, and they're getting like 120 attacks in combat with 3 attacks each, doing 6s to mortal wounds. So it is kind of you kind of got that.
That reminds me of the Gloom Spite.
Exactly.
The rampaging mods of Gobos that are just insane.
Rampaging little Skinks just shooting blowpipes and stabbing you in the
Wouldn't it be refreshing to see Skinks used as anything other than
objective holders?
Objective holders,
where they're
shields.
strung out 1 inch away.
Chain summoning, and all that.
Brilliant.
It'd be great to see just a rampaging.
Just a big old unit of 40 Skinks just coming at you.
All right, where else do we want to go? Because there is so much in this book. But as I say, conscious of time and also conscious. I think Salamander Hunting Pack. We were chatting about these just this afternoon, weren't we?
Yeah. So salamanders have become my new best friend. So you'll notice instantly the burning jaws of their melee weapon, so they get +1 attack in combat.
So this is a range 1, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2 rend, doing D3 damage.
6s to hit, do D3 mortal
This
wounds.
is 3 attacks. So under coalesced,
4 attacks.
4 attacks.
Then you take them in the battalion. That becomes in the Thunderquake Star Host.
Yeah.
That becomes 5 attacks each. 80 points. I'm just going to throw
80
that out.
points, yeah, they're not super expensive.
You take a Stegodon Chieftain. You can spend a command point to give them another. So that's 6 attacks each. So 6 attacks.
3
2s, 3s because they charge.
2s, 3s.
Or spending a command point.
Yeah.
-2 and D3 damage doing mortal wounds. Then you can throw in the 4 shooting attacks that they have because it's the same profile. That's 10 attacks doing D3 damage and mortal wounds.
Yeah, just to clarify the mortal wounds, yes, they do D3 mortal wounds.
But
if it's a hit roll of 6, it becomes D3 mortal wounds rather than just D3 damage. Yeah, so
I think
going through the wound roll.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that hunting packs were actually quite often a competitive choice in the meta because you take Thunderquake Star Host and you would spam a lot of the hunting packs and Celadons. But I think originally it was Razordons that were the big one because they would just throw 4d6 shots at you each.
And in fairness, Razordons are still interesting.
Yeah, they're still good.
They can shoot twice in the turn. They've got a mechanic that if
when they charge.
just in the charge phase.
Oh, okay.
If they are within 3 inch of an enemy at the end of a charge phase, so that's when they charge or receive a charge. They can shoot again. It's a reduced shoot. It's D6, but it's still interesting.
It's still good.
But the Salamanders, I think I'm with you on this. The Salamanders feel more consistent.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's jaws.
If you can take 3 of those, slam them into a unit, you've got the Skinks essentially are just a few extra wounds you're carrying. 3 wounds each on them.
Yeah. So Salamanders are 3 wounds each, which is actually 6 wounds because of the Skinks
3 Skinks that you can just pop off as they go. Yeah. Okay, interesting stuff. What else? Anything caught your eye? We're getting towards the end now. I think we are. Is that? Let's just see.
I think, Stegodons is something interesting.
Let's go to Stegodons then. Hold on a second. Engine of the God and Stegodons. How about that? Okay, here we go. Now, we did shout Stegodons at each other quite a lot. What was it about?
So if you haven't seen Games Workshop's Facebook post, where you can take like 8 Stegodons in an army now. So they kind of got the Gristle Gore treatment. If you don't know what Gristle Gore was, that's a Flesh Eater Courts thing where you could take dragons as battle line.
Yep.
Now if you take Coalesced and the Thunder Lizards, which is another one of the what's it called?
Battalions.
It's not a battalion, it's the Star Hosts.
Okay, yeah.
One of the Star Hosts. So
Constellations.
Yeah, Constellations.
There you go.
There you go. So Thunder Lizards give them +2 wounds. It makes the general's mount better. So your Skink Chief on a Stegodon now gets +1 attack on all these things because he's cool like that. You can pop command points to roll the Engine of the God twice or to shoot your Bastiladons twice. So now it's 18 shots from a Bastiladon on 2 damage, which is always good. But Stegodons are really interesting now because you'll notice grinding jaws. Lo and behold, they have a jaws attack now.
2 attacks, 3s, -1 rend 2 damage.
That's now 3 attacks because of Coalesced. They're the other thing that always kind of slips your mind as well, but they're -1 damage as well. This entire army's -1 damage. So your lizards are going to be surviving longer. Not only are they -1 damage, they have an additional 2 wounds.
Yeah,
they're battle line, so you can take as many of them as you want.
Yeah.
You can either give them the Starstreak Bow, which is like a 24-inch 3 damage shooting attack, which is good, or the Sunfire Throwers, which is mortal wounds when they're close to them. They can give themselves +1 armor if they're near a unit, so 3 up save. They can do mortal wounds on the charge. They can add 1 to attacks because of the Skink Chief.
Let's just jump into a couple of the rules then. So let's just have a look at some of the stats. So the Sky Streak Bow is 24-inch, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 rend 3 damage.
Yeah.
It's not shabby.
Not shabby.
I like it. We've got the Sunfire Throwers in there, which are 8-inch range, 1 attack.
And you roll the dice for everybody within 8 inches, and then on 5 they take mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So you have to choose between the Sunfire Throwers and the Starstreak Bow.
Which is just to be clear, they've just introduced Flamethrowers back into Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
In the truest sense. Love it. Yeah.
So personally, I would go with a Sunfire just because, your Stegodons will be charging forwards. so they're going to be close. But
yeah, absolutely. And why are you charging them forward? Is because that when he gets to melee, we're looking at the meteoric war spears with 3 attacks, 3/3 -1 rend.
If you choose
That's
it
the
as a
skink chief
chieftain.
popping away, absolutely.
But, yeah.
Massive horns with a 2-inch range, so it's decent. We're reaching over first rank. 2 attacks, 3/3 -1 rend, and the damage.
5 damage at full wound.
5.
Oh no, sorry,
No,
4
4
damage
with
at
the massive horns
full
at forwards.
wounds.
Grinding jaws, which we can push up
3
to 3
attacks.
attacks. We can get that to
2s
get
to
to
hit.
2s to hit, 3s to wound, -1 rend doing 2 damage.
Yep.
Not bad at all.
The
And then we're
crushing
into the
stomps.
crushing stomps, which are pushing out 5 attacks on 3s and 3s,
-1 and 2 damage.
-1 and 2 damage. There's a lot of multiple damage stuff going on.
Yeah,
there.
so what I like about this, you can tell Games Workshop were really thinking when they made this Battletome. So instead of it being like grinding jaws and crushing stomps, they've now got separate weapon profiles.
Yeah.
So what that means is like when you add one to attack characteristics, you now get 3 attacks because there's 3 weapon profiles.
Yeah.
So even though they're the same,
it becomes a multiplier, which
yeah,
again
it becomes
is,
a big old
they love the
multiplier.
way of again, if you've not listened to or watched the Stormcast with Joe Starton, and he talks about playing with the sort of dice mechanic
Yeah.
to create interesting things. Just separating the weapon profile out means +1 attack means something. It's a multiplier then.
Of course, I mean, they had to go the other way with Plague Monks just because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, 'cause it
Plague
went
Monks
mental.
were broken.
Yeah,
but, on a 1 model unit, it's not
one
as bad.
10 wound unit, it's doing it, yeah. But if you had 30 Stegodons, possibly a problem.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. We've got, should we... Is that what do we need to talk about Engine of the Gods? Do you want to?
Well, it's kind of similar. You can either, it now gets 2d6 normally and 3d6 if it's near a slan, rather than 3d6 normally and 4d6 if it's near a slan, choosing the 3 you want. So you don't get choice in it anymore. So you can only get times crawl to a halt if you're near a slan and you roll 666s, so there's a lot of a less likelihood you're going to get it. But it does, double the attacks characteristics of weapons used by Seraphon units held within 24, which is crazy. That's just crazy.
Okay, we're less than 10 minutes of the show left because I want to keep this to an hour. We've had a look through the book. You've spent some time on this. You've been chewing the cud with Liam and Luke.
Yeah.
What's your list looking like right now? And but please bear in mind, don't go out and buy this and go to a tournament with it.
No.
This thing would need play testing. But you've been toying with some lists. You've been talking about some ideas.
So I think personally, with my army, croakers and must include.
Yeah.
And what I would do is I would focus my army kind of behind the Thunderquake Temple Host and the Sunclaw Temple Host.
Right.
So I'm kind of going to be having this, Carnosaur with a bunch of warriors as my front line. And then behind that, a bunch of Bastillodons, a Stegodon Chief, and some Salamanders. It's kind of my range support. I quite like that. Yeah. You've got Croak in the middle doing all his magic. You've got the Saurus up front suppressing the fire. Then you've got Bastillodons behind them shooting laser beams.
Yeah.
And, personally for me, I think Coalesced is how I want to play them because I am a bit gripey about summoning mechanics, I think they're okay. I just think there's such a massive advantage in the late game that it can break games sometimes.
Well,
but
I think the thing is, it's about playstyle that you like.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Coalesce because for all intents and purposes, it's a different way of playing Seraphon.
And it's the playstyle I like.
And if we go to Starborn, that's more like the traditional model.
Yeah,
and
some people
everything
enjoy
we've
that.
said in terms of the stats, of course, still take place. But what do the Starborn gain beyond
They
summoning?
get teleports.
So, as in they can jump around the table
they can
once
teleport
deployed,
and they can get Bravery 10 across.
So you're making a choice really in terms of play style of uber maneuverable, less survivable, less damaging, but uber
so
maneuverable.
Kind of that,
so we're kind of MSU, lots of jumping around the table.
Tactical, grabbing objectives, sneaking about.
Whereas you're going with a smashing and bashing kind of mechanic
because,
of just removing the enemy.
Lizards.
Just remove the enemy and still be around and score points.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty much.
I like it. What I like about it is they've produced a book where you can do both of those.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing.
So it's one of those, you can go MSU and teleport around all over the place. You can have massive chunks of lizards in a coalesced army.
Yeah.
You can have an entire army of big angry dinos. You know, if you want like 3 Stegodons as your battle line, take 3 Stegodons as your battle line. You're not going to grab objectives, but you can have fun killing people.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's one of those, you know, you do have the competitive way to play them, and you have the kind of fun way to play them. And competitive play isn't for everybody.
No,
but
yeah.
So you have this fun aspect to them, but for those people who are wanting a super competitive army, I think there is some gems in this.
So what I want to do, for instance, I've got I think a total of 7, possibly 9 magma drops. Is keep the point system,
Yeah,
but open play in terms of structure.
yeah.
And we have a monster bash off.
Monster mash.
Thing, you know, that's the thing.
Do a
take
could
on a whole
almost
bunch
do
of
a
Stegodons.
what's it called?
Meeting engagement.
No.
No, not doing that.
Multi, lots of players.
4-player.
Oh,
Whatever.
this
it's
is
called.
so professional.
I don't
Triumph and Treachery.
Triumph and
There we go. You know, you
Is
can
that still
have
around?
Beast
Is that still a
Claw
thing?
Raiders in one corner,
No,
Seraphon
no.
in the other.
I'm too old for that. Okay, I think we're there. There. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoy this book as much as we have so far. We are, as soon as we've finished recording this, we're setting the table up for a battle report. We'll get that edited as fast as possible so you guys can see them playing on the table. I think I get to play the Seraphon. Is that how it works?
No,
I figured this
I'm
much.
playing the Seraphon.
We've not decided the opponent yet. It's probably going to be Fire Slayers.
Yeah.
Although I've now found out you reduce damage, it's
take those Hearthguard, yeah? I shouldn't have told you that.
might alter my list somewhat, you know. But that's great, isn't it? It's great when an army comes out and it pushes and challenges the existing meta. So this is going to be good fun, for sure. If somebody's been out there and built a list heavily around a whole bunch of endless spells, that can be a problem. You know, there is now
meta.
what I like about it is when they release a book and it's a hard counter to a bunch of other stuff, and then you see the whole meta kind of reshuffle and jiggle, you know, and that's a good thing for the game. It freshens. One book can freshen 5 other armies just by creating a hard, you know, counter amongst them. So I'm excited to see what this does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, pop them below, and we'll keep an eye on the video for the next few days and try and answer any questions. We might even do a follow-up video at some point. You know, Luke has been churning away on some lists, so if I can convince Luke to do maybe a list-picking show, it'd be pretty good.
My phone's been binging with like, skinks, you just gotta take skinks, and then it's like, nah, skinks are rubbish, put them in the bin, this is what you want to do now. It's like, Luke, you were literally telling me 30 seconds ago to go out and buy skinks.
We
what
all
do
know,
you
like,
want from me?
9 tenths of the gaming world goes to Luke for their list, so you know, let's get him on and let's see what he can produce out of this filthy book. We have got the good news is between you know, Rachel and Liam, we've got a bucket load of Seraphon. So there's plenty of lists for us to not only test out, but to put on the channel and put into battle reports. So watch this space. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks all. Bye.